I would like to request Dr. Kamana ma'am to start the national conference. Thank you.
धन्यवाद संजय सर। हमारे बीच उपस्थित अनुभवी महानुभावों का इतने सुंदर व आकर्षक शब्दों में उनका परिचय दिया। कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हुए मैं अपने प्रोग्राम की मुख्य अतिथि विलक्षण प्रतिभा की धनी प्रोफेसर नीलिमा भगवती को आमंत्रित करूंगी कि कृपया वे अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करें।
Okay, I'm just in, yeah, right. Namaste to all. Respected Nirmal Singhji, Patron, Saraswati College of Professional Studies, Guest of Honor, Rotarian Deepak Gupta-ji, Co-Patron, Savita Rawatji, Secretary, Uttarakhand CTF, Dr. S.C. Pachauri-ji, Organizing Secretary, Dr. Sanjay Kumar-ji, UP Chapter, CTF, invited resource persons, the entire family members of CTF, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. A hearty welcome to you all on behalf of CTF, and I'm carrying all the good wishes to you from the CTF Assam chapter. Since the CTF Secretariat is here, their love, their good wishes are all for you all. In fact, there's a little bit of trouble while coming from my workplace today, not workplace, in fact, I went to the university and there was a huge traffic jam. So I entered slightly bit late. I hope you won't mind for that and excuse me for that too. Friends, indeed, first I congratulate both UP and UK chapter CTF for organizing this time needed. It is extremely time needed webinar. In fact, the pandemic has made us, to see each other on the screen more closely than before, right? But one thing, just let me start with the corona itself, the corona-19 is just a tiny virus, right? And it has shaken the world. It has shaken the world in such a way that the ego of humanity has been shattered. And also all the sectors, practically the education sector, it has received a hard blow. It is in fact the largest sector, and it has received the largest blow. Why I'm saying? Because the schools, the colleges, the universities, all are closed for almost 2 years. In my own home state, the schools have opened, that to all the alternate days. And the choice is the parents. If the parents allow the children to go, they will go, and if not, they will go for the online. So this is the situation of the online and offline in our country right now, friends. Therefore, this pandemic, it has brought a dramatic change, I should say, a dramatic change in the entire education sector. Never we thought that such a day will come. And also, most of us have started thinking that whether we should or we will get adapted to the new normal, or whether the situation will always be like this, half offline, half online. So that is a big question before us. But anyway, it is 21st century. Whether there is pandemic or no pandemic, we must be competent in using the online. This is what I feel. This is what I feel very strongly. And the 21st century, it is a requirement skill, most required skill right now. Therefore, though we are having a number of online, webinars for the last 1.5 years, the words online is not that new, right? It was actually started in 1960. I'll just give you a brief outline. It was started in 1960 in the University of Illinois, US. And the students at that time in 60s, they started learning from computer terminals, right? That were interlinked to form a network. Then in 94, we see, if we just go back, the University of Phonics, they became the first education institutions in the world to offer bachelor degree and master degree. Then let us come little bit to the University of Toronto, Canada, that they provided the first ever complete online course. Then let us come to, again, to Britain, the Open University, which started offering online distance course. But just after that, also in our country, we are proud to say that IGNO started functioning online. And in fact, it is the largest, I should say, which is, catering to the needs of around, I think, 4 million, students. Is the largest open university in the world. So that is something great. So like this, if we come again to the Andhra Pradesh, we find that started open university. But let me say one thing, that in fact, from 90s, as I feel and as I have seen, it is my perception that the online started gradually taking its speed. And just imagine, ICT, it has reached greater height in educational institutions for few decades ago, before the pandemic started, and investment in educational technology reached US dollars 18.66 billion in 2019. This data I have taken from the net. And a projection was made online education to reach 350 billion US dollars by 2025. This is a projection. There are, therefore, some technological terms which we keep on using, and some also technology or ICT firms we know very well. And if I come to one very famous and very popular ICT firm, that is Baiju. I think everybody knows. Lots of advertisements are given in the TV if you just go through it. And that is in fact working immensely, tremendously in our country. But one thing, though the pace of unlearning is gradually coming up and pandemic has brought it slightly more, we find, or we have to see, what is the impact of unlearning in the education system of the country, because we are still lagging behind in comparison to the other countries, advanced countries. When in 2004, it was observed in Dubai that the students do not carry textbooks in the school bag. They use the web texts. That shows that this thing is yet to come, that is started, gradually starting, but we are still lagging behind in our country. But let me just point out for your attention that how far the impact is there in online right now at the present situation. The first, I think, what comes to my mind is that it is slowly is coming up because there was unplanned and rapid move to online education. Before pandemic, the teachers were not trained. They never knew. They were never experienced on online. So it took time. And in fact, the transactions which are done on online, it became extremely boring, like the bipolar process. Goes on saying from the textbook or saying something and the students listens. Second thing is the prior training and also the attitude to learn something innovative that is tremendously missing in a section of teachers. Why I am saying this? Because since I move around the country very frequently and I always interact with teachers, I find that this is a big problem with us. They show some sort of inertia. They show some sort of inertia to learn something innovative and to apply it in the classroom. Another important thing why the impact is low is the insufficient bandwidth, what we call the maximum amount of data which is transmitted over an internet connection. That is one of the problems. In most of the webinars, in some areas, or say in some universities even, when I participate, join, this is one of the problems which we find. The connectivity, let me say of the connectivity. India is yet to get connected digitally. This is one of the major problems. And you already know that the remote places, and Assam is full of hills and plains, you know. So what happens? The remote areas or the hill areas, there is no internet connection. So this is one of the shortcomings for online learning over here. And another one, the lack of hands-on practice. Lack of hands-on practice is, yes, I learned. Theoretically, I know everything, but I am not practicing it, which makes one to keep away from being a competent online teacher. Therefore, what we find that we cannot compare our states with overseas or the other advanced countries. We have to come up. Most of the countries, like practically in the public schools, I'm not talking about the private institutions, they are somehow managing or somehow doing something. But when we come to the public, I have seen in my own state, the public, the government schools, where there is no internet connectivity in the locations where the schools or colleges are situated. Then again, we find that the learners, they don't have that kind of orientation as how to sit for the online classes. So there are like this, a number of problems which I can incite or say before you, which is making the impact of the online learning rather slow in our country. Therefore, we have to think about the future. What is the future of online learning? My time is limited. I always stick to the time. I will not speak for more than 15 minutes. So when we talk about the future of online learning, just yesterday, one guardian, he called me at around 11. Why he was calling at the 11 at that night? For me, it is that night. I couldn't understand. He said, ma'am, I want to ask you, if I don't send my child because of the pandemic, what will happen? I said, what will happen? He will miss his education. Then what to do? That I said, you have to help him to be in touch with online education. Then he said, it was really pathetic. He said, ma'am, I can't afford to buy a mobile smart handset for my son. So this is the situation. These are some of the situations which are cropping up in the online process, particularly for the students. Therefore, let us come quickly to the future of online learning in our country. What is the future of online learning? Now, the meaningful use of online learning plays a very substantive advantage for students that we know. It has made the world a small one. When the student clicks the mouse, they can see, they can know, they can understand, they can read lots of things. But again, this technology is also, for me, it is also a blessing and it is also a curse. If it is being used nicely in a better way, then obviously there is a good future. But if not, then it will be a curse for us. So let us take this online learning to be a blessing and teach our learners that how to use it, how to go for it, and how to make the teachers, how to make the classroom interesting. Practically now the teachers will have a very tough time with the NCT taking up, lots of issues right now. And if the teachers are not trained, they'll be meeting the digital students in the classroom. They will be not successful as a teacher in the classroom. So lots of things are coming up for our future, which we have to really think about. In the meantime, when we think about the future, we find that some works are going on. And practically, when we say that the classes or any sort of projects which are being taken up by, like, let me point out NCERT. NCERT, they have done a number of, or brought out a number of apps like the e-Patsala, they mainly to achieve the sustainable goal, and also the Nishtha, the apps are like that. And even the private firms, they're bringing out lots of, I have mentioned about Baiju, which they have apps like Think and Learn. That is a wonderful, I have seen one day, I have seen that it is a wonderful app, you know, how they have to think themselves, the children, and they learn. So when we see these things coming up in our country, we find that the future of online learning is not bad. Though UNESCO, what it says that India is lagging behind. Yes, we are lagging behind, but we are lagging behind in what? In the process of implementation of the right way of online learning. This is what is missing. What is missing? The right way. Therefore, friends, let me come to the Digital India, which was rolled out by our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, who is likely to go a long way in meeting the challenges of the country, practically and online. And therefore, it is essential for us to give a very serious concern to it and to give 100% support and involvement to make this project successful and very meaningful. Then only we can find that the future of online or digital learning is very bright for us. I can go on saying lots of things about it, but time will not permit me. But I will definitely come to one of the area, how to meet the challenges, since I have pointed out some of the shortcomings of online learning, but how to meet. Let me say that in our country, about over 75%, mind you, children face challenges in accessing online learning. It was reported in Times of India just recently. 75% is a big, big percentage. And second thing, why you have to meet challenges? Because 21st century paradigm shift in education is totally different. And the digital education or the virtual education, whatever you call it, that is one of the important component of 21st century. Even in our National Education Policy 2020, it has been specifically mentioned about online learning, online teaching or virtual learning. Why? How we have to meet the challenges now? Let me come to the third important point, that the present generation of learners, this is something very important, each and every teacher must know. Each and every teacher must know. And you have seen yourself how a child of 2.5 years old can download pictures from a mobile, which shows that it is already in them. And when they will come to school, what kind of students they will be, which the teachers have to prepare themselves to meet this jet generation or this 21st century, let me use this word, 21st century skill students. Therefore, the greatest challenge lies before the teacher education institutes of the country. I always repeatedly say this, the teachers must think that the student community is their heart and soul. Unless and until they think that the student community is their heart and soul, they can never be a successful teacher. They can never be a successful teacher of 21st century scale. Therefore, lots of training, lots of orientation courses, lots of ways, lots of avenues, they have to discover, they have to explore to become competent, become very skillful online user or transactor of education in the classroom, because it is totally different. It is totally different. You have to catch the attention of the students in the classroom, which is not possible without interacting with them in the classroom. Friends, therefore, we must be very concerned about this group of students for whom our duty is what? To give them justice. To give them justice. We have to change the teaching culture in the classroom and acquire those skills which the present century is bringing in front of us so that we can give 100% justice in the classroom. This is what I always feel as a teacher teaching for 44 years in both college and university education, I feel it very strongly. Unless and until we give justice, we are not fit to be teachers. Let me come to another point, that the mental readiness or the teaching readiness, this is something important. This is what everybody, to meet the challenge, again, I'm coming back to the teachers, they have to develop the teaching readiness as per the requirement, because this webinar is online. So whatever I'm saying, it all implies to online learning only. So they have to get ready to get into the class fully prepared, or from distance, whatever it is, to give them the right type of education, the perfect education, the interesting education, the interactive education, the joyful education through the online learning. Another one is, what is important to meet the challenge is the self-motivation. Being a student of psychology, I feel this very strongly, that unless and until a teacher or one is motivated to learn something new, he or she cannot do that. That motivation, that inner motivation must come, that this is my duty, this is what I have to do. My target are my students. Therefore, I must be very competent on transacting in online with my students. Another point which I want to touch is that the virtual engagements. The virtual engagements I have visited recently and also interviewed. I was really sad that out of 25 teachers, they all belong to secondary stage of education. I asked a question, how can you engage your students virtually? And nobody can give an answer. So this is high time. This is high time that you have to think. It is not only that you will go on speaking all the time. That is not the way of perfectly using the online. How you can use them, the virtual engagement, it is called virtual engagement, how to keep the children engaged in activities. Recently, CTF Assam, they conducted, our Uttarakhand chairperson was there, Savita Rawat. We all did, even I did it, a workshop on project-based learning. And over that, in that workshop, we learned very meaningfully how to keep the students engaged virtually. So this is one important for us. Then the training part comes. Of course, there are 50 hours training annually for the teachers according to the National Education Policy, but the training is not only for the certificate or for any other say, but to learn. And they have to give 100% involvement in this learning. Infrastructure comes another one. Most of the government schools, we find that there is lack of infrastructure. A good lab is not there, or computer arrangements are not there. Maybe 2 or 3 computers are there, which are inadequate for the children to use. So this kind of infrastructural development must come out, and also to transform the online learning into active learning. This has become my slogan these days, that transform online learning into active learning. Then only the online learning will be successful. And also when you come to assessment, the assessment part, there is also paradigm shift in assessment, since the numerical is not that very reliable nowadays. So many assessment processes online are there. Keeping aside the rubric assessment or other innovative, we can see or we can learn through different tools which are available in front of us. Therefore, we find that keeping in view what are the shortcomings we are finding, we have to, as a community, as a teaching community, as teaching professionals, we have to get together, stand in a common platform and think ways and means, find out innovative ways how to give the constructive, productive education to the children. When the online, maybe we have to use online always. Nobody knows till now. Pandemic, we know, but again, people are saying that it is coming. So there is a sort of panic in the minds of people. But anyway, we have to prepare for the worst always. Always we have to prepare. We don't know, maybe it will be new normal, as we say. Lots of webinars are there on new normal. So new normal will be there, and computer is a required and essential tool which we have to carry wherever we go. So this is, I feel, and these are purely my reflections. My reflections, I have just spoken in front of you. I have submitted in front of you. Maybe some of you may accept it, some of you may not, but this is purely on the ground reality. This is nothing from the textbook or nothing from the internet. This is what I have seen in reality, whether it is in Delhi, whether it is in Assam, whether it is in South, or whether it is in North, whatever, wherever it is. We have to gear up the online system of education. With these words, I think it is time for me to just close my session. I thank you all for inviting me. In fact, I have got a meeting just after 1 hour. I'll go to Guwahati University. So